What's up, fellas? This is Carlos Green with the Men's Power Connect, and welcome back to another episode of the Men's Power Connect. And we are in this series called Permission to Pause. And if you haven't heard the first episode, go back and take a listen to it. I thought there was some really good information that's there. And again, the purpose of the Men's Power Connect is to equip, engage, and empower men in life and leadership. And we're hoping that this is actually bringing life to you. And we have an amazing cast that helps me to co-host the show, and they're my iron sharpening iron brothers. So Mr. Osei Harvey in the house.
Hey, it's good to be back in the house as always.
It's good to have you.
And I'm still here.
You are still here.
You're not trying to get rid of me.
Never, ever.
I appreciate that.
Never getting rid of you. And then it's good. And then our other co-host, again, my amazing iron sharpening iron brother, Mr. Myron Head.
Yeah, man.
What's up?
What up, y'all? What's going on? Grace and peace to you.
All the teeth.
I know, right? All the teeth. Yeah,
exactly.
So glad to be back with you guys for another episode of Men's Power Connect, and we're excited to be here. Just looking forward to diving into this space of mental wellness, as Carlos was talking about. We're on our series, Permission to Pause, and so today we are talking about tools for mental success.
Yeah.
So I think about men and how we are, right? How we're wired. We are Mr. Fix-It. Shout out to the wives. They start talking. We start thinking about how to fix the problem. Mm-hmm. That's what we do. We're wired that way. We see a problem. We don't want to talk about it. We just want to fix it. But interestingly, most men, we don't have the right tools to do that internal fixing when we have things going on within ourselves, right? That mental health challenge that may be going on. So today, if you're listening, you might want to put your feet up, lay back on the couch. We got the counselor in the house, Mr. Osei Harvey.
Yes.
And he is going to be breaking down and sharing some tools from the space of mental health that we as men can utilize to be better internally, not just for ourselves, but for those around us, those who love us. So with that being said, I'm going to throw it to Osei with the first question of what we talking about, what we starting off with.
Well, first of all, this topic is very heartfelt for me, not just within the mental health space, but with men, mental wellness in men. So if you've listened to previous podcasts, I've shared that I've been in the mental health world, been servicing in the mental health world for over 20 years now. And I've done private practice work, and majority of my clients are actually men, which is great. I'm really excited about that.
That's great.
Because again, I think especially when you look at, just previous generations, mental health, mental wellness, therapy, taboo, right? I mean, that's just not anything we would dare to even touch, right? Because we feel like we can carry the load. We feel like we can figure it out. We can fix it. There's no reason for me to talk to anybody. I'm going to figure it out. And unfortunately, with all that we take in on a day-to-day basis, everything that we put on our backs, we have a tendency to suppress those things, which can become very unhealthy, not just for us, but for those around us. Yeah. So it is my honor, my privilege to be able to really dive into the world of men and to be able to just kind of walk the journey with them and kind of figure out some ways that we can maybe challenge ourselves and mitigate some issues and some challenges that perhaps we never dealt with, right? So I love this space right here. So
let's do it.
You say you've been in the mental health space for over 20 years, right?
Yes, sir.
I do feel like I should say thank you for your service. No, I really should, and that's real talk.
Yeah.
Because especially with mental health being exacerbated, especially over the last 5 or 6 years, and you've done the work, you've got the experience and the exposure and the credentials that you were ready and prepared for this space.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Yeah.
Makes a difference.
So yeah, let's dive in. So excuse me. I think when we speak about mental health, I think across the board we know that most of the time women are going to take advantage of that space to be able to talk to a therapist, or even amongst each other, right? Even amongst their girlfriends or family members, and it does provide a platform for them to just talk about maybe the issues and challenges and things that they're going through. And as a result of them doing that, there is relief. There is a valve, right? Excuse me. And as a result, they can keep going. They can go about their day, their lives, and keep pushing. Well, unfortunately for men, I see us as volcanoes. Oftentimes when we leave those issues and those challenges within us, and we've talked about this before, there's a level of there's consequence that comes with suppression. We talked about last week implosion, right? And what that looks like, right? Implosion then turns into a possible eruption to the point where it not only damages us, but it damages those around us, right? And so we don't deal with those things, which then turns into internal as well as external damage, right? And so now to mitigate that, we got to take some action, right? Of course, there's therapy, and that's good. But I wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about just some things to keep in mind, put some terms behind what it is that we feel like we need to exercise as men on a regular basis, right? So, when we talk about coping, let me ask you all this. When you talk about coping, what comes to mind? Just throw it out there.
Kind of like we talked about last episode, going to the gym.
Yep.
Prayer, of course, always
Right.
is helpful. And I don't know.
Well, what you're saying though is like those are the things that we do to cope. But
That's a
when
good
you
point,
talk
yeah.
about coping,
Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm just trying to get through this.
Yeah.
I'm trying to cope with my circumstance,
Right.
my
Right.
situation. I'm just coping. I'm getting by. I'm getting through
by.
it. I'm trying to make sure that I don't go off the deep end.
Right. And not messing
This
anything
too shall
up.
pass.
Right.
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 That's what I'm.
Just
That's
getting
why I
through
feel
it. Yeah.
getting through it.
Managing
I'm
through it.
coping.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Just managing through.
Right.
But in terms of coping exercises, we talk about those things, but I think it's healthy to actually put it into categories, right? So when you think about coping, there's two types of coping. So there's micro coping, and then there's macro coping. Okay. So when we talk about let's start with micro coping. Micro coping is what you do in moments of distress, in the moment, right? So let's say, for instance, there's some challenges going on in your job. You feel a sense of anxiety. I need to have something that I can immediately shift to that's going to eliminate me falling off the deep end, as you guys would mention, right? So that can look like a panic attack. That could look like an anxiety attack. That can even look like anger. You know what I mean? Just going off, right? What do I need to do in that moment to prevent myself from actually going into that point of eruption, right? So for some people, micro coping could be, let me take some deep breaths. Let me get some oxygen in my blood.
Yeah.
Let it get to the brain so that I can think clearly about my actions. We talk about reaction versus response, right? So microcoping is going to help us in those moments where we can pull that tool out of that toolbox immediately. That's going to get us to a point where we're grounded.
So
right?
also, is that like if the pressure is getting too much, or there's an escalation occurring when people say, "Let me just step away."
Yeah, man.
And go for this walk.
That's right.
Is that an example of micro coping?
That's an example of micro coping. I need something immediately that's going to disconnect me from the situation.
Okay.
So that I don't do anything that I would regret or say anything that I would regret or maybe even have a reaction. It could be even an effect on you medically. If I don't bring myself to a grounding point,
Yeah.
there's something that could possibly occur.
Like a stroke or something like that.
Blood
you go.
pressure getting high, right?
There you go. So what do I need to resort to in the moment, right then and there, to make sure that I can walk away from the situation?
I'm in a good space, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
For the moment, I'm in a
For
good
the moment,
space.
yeah, exactly.
And it's okay to do that.
It's okay. Yeah.
Instead of trying to push through that.
Yeah, because oftentimes pride kicks in, right? Where we feel like, again, we need to fix it or we need to have control in the moment.
Yeah.
No. No. You're doing yourself more of a disservice if you feel like you need to hold on to that situation until unfortunately something happens that's going to be a detriment. Yeah, you don't want that to happen.
And I know there was a stat that I saw where it said 40% of men in the U.S. have never been to therapy
Yeah,
or have never talked to
about it.
someone about their mental health.
that's right.
And 29%, to your point, of those 40 didn't do it because of the pride or how they thought it might look. Maybe it makes them look weak or soft or something like that.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Which is a great segue. So not only is there micro coping, but there's macro coping.
So before you get to the
Sure.
macro, I know you had mentioned one of the micros was mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And you were sharing earlier with us, and I loved, I was recording that then, but if you can kind of hit on really what is mindfulness? What does that look like? So I know for some people in the Christian community, they may feel like mindfulness is not Christianese, right? So if you can really hit on mindfulness and really what that looks like.
Yeah, so mindfulness is being present in the moment,
Okay.
having an intentionality of being present in the moment. I love to give examples. So if there's something on our mind, if there's something that's really disturbing us, is bothering us, and let's say, for instance, we're in the park, we're going for a walk. This is just what we do, right? Mindfulness is giving yourself the permission to step out of what's going on in your mind and to escape to what's in front of you. Okay. And that's using your senses. Okay. So that could look like, all right, I see that there's birds flying through the sky. There's a flock of birds. I wonder where they're going to. Are they going south? Right. Is there a storm coming? You know, you're processing these things in your mind. Right. I feel the wind breezing against my face. Right. It's a little cool right now. Maybe the temperature's dropping. You're having this conversation with yourself. You're taking yourself out of what's going on up here that could lead to distress to more of what's present, what's going on in the moment in real time, right? If you're out in front of your yard, in your front yard, and you know you've got your shoes off and you're just on the grass, I feel the grass in between my toes, right? The grass feels great on my feet. You know, I feel a sense of peace right now. I see my neighbor walking out of the door. I say hello. You know, it's things that are happening in real time that you're acknowledging.
Okay.
That takes you away from those thoughts again that can become a bit of a distress.
And are your, I was going to ask, because I noticed you mentioned a couple of times your senses.
Yes.
So is that a critical part to that mindfulness, or can it be?
Yes, 100%. I think that is the essential part.
Okay.
To mindfulness is making sure that you're incorporating as many of your senses as you possibly can, because now your brain is computing, right? It's recognizing what's going on right in the moment, and it's giving attention to that thing. You know?
Does it have an effect on you physically as well?
Yeah. If we were to do a study of how many people had physical symptoms prior to mindfulness, and then after they exercise mindfulness, how much those things may calm down, you will see a significant difference, right? So let's say, for instance, your heart rate is up. You get the sweaty palms, you know, you're nervous, you're doing the pacing, right? But now I'm intentional as far as exercising mindfulness. 5 to 10 minutes later, you could see your heart rate went from 110 now down to 85, right? Wow. You can sense that, all right, I'm a little bit more at ease. My palms are not sweating as much as they used to, or as much as they were prior to the exercise, right?
So I want to ask both of you all a question. A separate one for you, though, what you said earlier, but for you, Osei, here, oftentimes, too, when we work, we will steamroll our work. And we're just going from one meeting to the next, and then got to get this done, get this out. Is that mindfulness? Can you use you call it micro coping and mindfulness as a way when they say you need to take a break, like every hour and a half to 2 hours? Take that break. Is that part of that mindfulness and that micro coping at that point?
Yes, absolutely. So, and I encourage all my clients to do this, especially when there is a level of anxiety on the job, in the workplace. Disconnect. Go in your car. Get away from your place of work.
But I got all these emails I need to answer, and I got to get prepared for this next meeting that's coming up. And I've got these voicemails that I got to answer. So
and tell me how your mental
time.
health. Yeah, tell me how your mental health is after you do all that stuff, right? Tell me how. It's elevated.
I'm done.
You're burnt, and now you have nothing to give. Now you have nothing to give at home. The things that you really care for, the things that you take pride in, because you're so boggled down by all of these things that are considered expectations.
Yeah,
we've got to disconnect. We've got to compartmentalize and put ourselves or place ourselves, give it permission to place ourselves in situations where we can, at least for a few minutes, decompress and find peace.
That's that permission to pause.
That's that permission to pause. And I love that you brought that up about work, because as you were talking also, I was thinking about, I was at a leadership training some years ago, and one of the guys was doing a segment on mindfulness. And I was kind of like, what is this? Do I need to pray? I'm going to leave. I'm going to walk out. Because I'm just, again, that stigma of mindfulness.
Yeah.
And then I said, you know what? I'm here. The training's been great. I'm just going to go. I'm going to go for it.
Right.
And we did this exercise where they had us sit up, posture good, hands on your legs, and just taking deep breaths. And then it said, now when you inhale, feel your breath from your diaphragm travel all through your body.
Yeah. That's it.
And I was like, close your eyes. I'm like, one eye open. Man, I started doing that breathing.
Yes.
I was like, and they was like, come back. And I was like, no.
Right.
Mindfulness.
I was in such a good state.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And so then we get back to work, and I remember I had a coach that I was working with, and I was sharing with him. I was like, yeah, we did the mindfulness stuff. I was like, but now it's back on the grind. And he was sharing with me, okay, before your next meeting, because I'm leading the meeting, 2 minutes. If you don't have 2 minutes, if you're going from one meeting to the next, 10, 15 seconds, take 2 or 3 breaths. Deep breath, release it, feel it go out. Right. And they would talk about, as thoughts come in, yeah, okay, I got to go to the mall. All right, cool. I'm going to let that go.
Let it go. There you go.
Let it come in and then let it go.
Exactly. Because you're going to try to creep in.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
When I tell you that space was so, and then writing things down, especially like during the day, if you're, I got to do this, write it down. So that way it's out of your mental space.
Yeah.
And you can kind of move away.
So that's freeing your mental space.
Yes.
When you're starting to write things down. So that could be an act of mindfulness too, then.
Because you know what we do? If you don't write it down, oh shoot, what was that thing I was supposed to? And now you stress because you can't remember what the thing was you were supposed to do.
That's right.
Yeah. Exactly.
You have.
Yeah.
Go
but I was just gonna say, and there's no clarity.
Ooh.
You just feel so clustered. You know what I mean?
Clarity is kindness.
Yeah. Say it again.
Clarity is kindness.
Clarity is kindness, ladies and gentlemen.
Clarity is kindness.
Make sure you write that down.
No, it does bring
absolutely.
clarity. I was going to go back to the question I was going to ask you. You said early on that there's a stigma on mindfulness in the Christian community.
Yeah.
And can you expound on that a little bit more? Because I'm a Christ follower. I don't have an issue with mindfulness.
So I think it stems from, we think about when Jesus is telling the story about when you have a strong man, right? And when that person, when the demons are cast out or whatever, and the house is left empty, if you don't fill it back up, then they come back and they bring even more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the mindset behind that, which is emptying, quote unquote, your mind, is I think what some people have interpreted mindfulness as, is I'm going to empty my mind. I'm not going to have anything in my mind. Whereas I think mindfulness can be kind of, as you talked about, Osei, looking and seeing, okay, I see this going on, and putting your mind on something else. Or even if you struggle still with that from a Christian perspective, mindfulness can be emptying your mind and then taking a scripture or
There you
taking a
go.
verse.
There you go.
And then getting that verse in your mind.
Right.
That's what I'm going to think on. Whatsoever things are good, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely. Yes, God, everything is good. Everything you've given me is good. God, you've given me a pure heart. So those are ways that you can still be mindful in other ways, right? If you
That's
just need
good.
to be mindful.
But that scripture you just said also said to think on those things.
Think on those things.
It did, right?
It's
I got you, right? But again, you ask, like, where is that challenge and where it can be? And I think that's where that challenge is, because thinking on those things, well, what things are we thinking on?
right.
Right? Are we thinking on things of the word? Are we thinking on the scriptures? Or are we just thinking to be thinking, right? So I think that's where sometimes that challenge can be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think that gets back to that micro coping too, that if you do think on the word,
Yeah.
if that's your outlet or if that helps you to calm down,
Right.
like what's my scripture
In the
for the day,
moment.
my word in the moment,
Yeah.
right?
That's my go-to.
That's
yeah.
to go to. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's micro coping
Yeah.
and mindfulness.
Yep.
Fellas, thanks for joining our conversation about mental wellness and the importance of exercising healthy coping. Hit that notification bell so you'll know when our next video will drop as we continue this discussion next Monday. Also, leave a comment and subscribe to our channel for great content. And one more thing, don't forget to go out and encourage another brother.